So good of you to join us. Thanks for clicking in. This is episode 10 of the Blue Files, the extended edition. My name is Anwar Knight. Welcome to the program. We have a real intriguing show ahead. We're going to highlight an icky situation that is occurring along the shores of Turkey. We're also going to learn how artificial intelligence is going to help with food waste. And for one U.S. state, a new law that could make grass illegal. So let's get to it. To help us with that, we welcome my co-host, Christina Stevens, to the BBM studio. Hello, Christina.
Hello, Anwar. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's so good to see you, and I'm excited about this show. Some really interesting topics. I want to start off by heading to Turkey and reluctantly wading through the Marmara Sea. Tell me about this.
Yeah, I feel like an 8-year-old because I'm going to use an 8-year-old word. They're calling it sea snot, okay? Right. So it looks how it sounds. That's the point. So it's kind of a thick, foamy layer of slime. It's off the coast of Turkey in the Marmara Sea. It's basically an area surrounded by Turkey. It connects the Black Sea to the Aegean Sea. And it's gross. Basically, it's gross. Mm-hmm. But it's not what it looks like that's the issue, of course, right? It's two things. One, what's happening underneath. So down at the bottom, it's basically suffocating the marine life. It's killing it off. Higher up for fisheries, it's clogging their nets. It's getting sucked into where the seawater goes in to cool motors and boats and killing off the engines. And of course, tourism. Nobody really wants to swim in that. So this sea snot, I'm loving the term and I'm loving some of the descriptions. Okay, so this paints a picture. There is something called sea snot stringer. Now that's a piece of sea snot that's a lot like snot. There are pieces they call floating clouds, and it's delicate little bits that just break apart. And then, of course, you have your marine snow. Kind of would look how it sounds. It's little drops of the mucus, and they accumulate organic debris and kind of fall down just like snow. So, of course, the issue here, what causes this? Two causes. One, hot water, warm water. You know, you've got the sun, you've got calm water, and you combine that with sewage runoff, fertilizer runoff, any kind of water pollution. And basically the really short explanation is that the algae is just overloaded with nutrients as a result of those two things, and it just gathers and feeds off itself in really simple terms. And it's specifically phytoplankton that's the big issue here. Yeah, so it just, and the parts on the surface, that's one thing. And the other part, that sinks down, it literally smothers things on the bottom of the sea.
It's what you don't see.
It's what you don't see in the sea, corals, the sea stars, shellfish,
sea sponges, you name it.
Yeah,
and experts are saying it's really its own ecosystem, but obviously not a very good one. And I was trying to understand this completely, and you really gave us a good description here. But it's organic material, and there's so many different things. You mentioned about the sewage and the pollution. So experts say it could be part feces, fragments of dead plants and animals. And as you said, that it drifts from the surface to the ocean floor. But through that process, it's releasing sort of the sugary carbohydrate, which makes it sticky, that gloopy mess, and why they term sea snot. So that's part of the problem. It starts to stick to everything, and it is having a major impact, not just on marine life, but also for tourism and the fishing industry. A lot of people rely on fishing. What I found interesting, Christina, is that some of the locals have gone on record on saying that although this is the worst ever, this outbreak, it has been a problem that's been going on for years. And that's part of the issue here.
It is, but it's gotten worse. That's where you talk about the increase in water pollution and climate change being impacts. Looking back in history, there are descriptions of what used to be called dirty water back even to the 1700s. But it was in the early 2000s that scientists started really tracking this and noticing it was more and more almost a yearly event. And that's the big issue. I mean, there are some things that just will naturally happen. Nature has its little moments. But this has been definitely getting worse and bigger, and that's the issue. So you can imagine the question is, what do you do about it? right? So in the short
Right.
term, they have workers out there literally vacuuming it up. They're kind of corralling it,
Yeah.
in a smaller spaces with flotation devices. They're getting out there with hoses, vacuuming it up. There are a couple of pilot projects as well, using some
Yeah.
oxygen to try and bubble oxygen in there, and even introducing a very specific type of marine bacteria in hopes that that'll kind of eat away at it a little bit. Of course, another part is this pollution. So
Right.
they've got something like 300 inspectors out looking for different sources of how pollution is getting into the water. And so they're hoping that, that will slow down the sewage outflow. So,
The thing is, though, when you mentioned about the crews and the vacuuming, that is something that I had a problem with because to me it's sort of a let's just vacuum the surface up. Nothing to see here, folks. Everything is okay. If you go back to sort of how the government officials have tried to tackle on this project, this initiative, I think it is all superficial, and I don't want to paint it with one brush, but that's what it appears to be to me, because there was a proposal in Istanbul, that they were going to build this huge wastewater treatment plant, and they ended up scrapping that. So that was one thing. The second is that, we are dealing with dry conditions. In Istanbul, this is one of the driest in 15 years, so there's no fresh water coming in. And then you mentioned the fact about sewage pollution. This particular waterway has been abused for years. So I think, yes, of course you want to get out there and okay, vacuum it up or clean it up. But you really need to get to the source of the problem. One is, of course, addressing the climate crisis. That's one thing. But the second is we have to stop, and I say we, I mean they have to stop the pollution entering the waterway from the beginning, whether it's factories, whether there's the hundreds of ships that cross into that waterway, whether or not they're dumping or not, I don't know. But, to really solve this is case in point. It's one thing to superficially say we've cleaned it up, everything is fine. You got to get to the root of the problem, right?
oh, absolutely. I kind of look at it as three stages. The immediate.
Yeah.
Suck it up, move out what you can to save what
Yeah.
is there now, to save the industry, to save the marine life, and kind of,
Right.
and they have actually, for now, temporarily stopped the activities of 14 industrial facilities in hopes of just kind of stopping
Good.
it. So those are the immediate things, and then the more medium
Right.
term is how to stop all of this sewage and other waste from getting in there in the first place. One report suggests that some of the waste that's going in there, only about half is being treated. So that's pretty significant. So that's more the
That's a
medium
problem.
term, and of course the long term is the climate change, which is
Yeah.
everybody's problem. So that's every
Without
country.
question. Well, we're going to continue to follow that. I know that the Turkish authorities have actually implemented a 22-point action plan. Let's see if they
Yeah.
fulfill the obligations, or is it just a paper trail? But let's move on. Let's head to Israel for our next story. And this is really exciting. It's a new tech startup called Wasteless, and they're using AI, artificial intelligence, to cut down on food waste. And we have talked about the problem with food waste. A lot of people are aware of it. But I think
Guilty.
it's worth mentioning. Say again?
So guilty, not just in the stores, but
Guilty.
at home. You know?
You're right. It's a collective problem. But it's interesting, and I think it's important to mention again that they estimate over 1 billion tons of food a year is wasted. And some, math expert broke it down to about 163 pounds for every man, woman, and child on the planet, which is just astounding. So this company now is using artificial intelligence to continuously adjust prices throughout the day, depending on a set criteria, and most importantly, the expiry date of food items versus the current date and time, inventory, promotions, maybe competition, but specifically setting prices on perishables, lowering the prices automatically as those items approach their expiration date. So the thing here is that it's a cash saving incentive for consumers, while also allowing the stores to sell off those products that very likely would end up being thrown out.
I love it. I love it. I think it's a great idea. There are people who will definitely take advantage of that, but it seems tricky to me. Sometimes I can't even find the expiration date. How do they track it? How do they change it, like on the fly? Especially, I think, you want to see how much something is when you're in the store,
Right.
right?
Well, this thing that they've implemented, and they've done hundreds of stores across Europe. It's all electronic shelf labels. So you wouldn't see the sticker gun sort of thing or a written note. It would all be electronic. So what happens is that for now, what they're focusing in on is meat products, packaged salads, maybe ready to go meals. So all of them are perishable, and based on how many is left on the shelf, how long do they have left in terms of expiry, it will fluctuate. It could go 2 or 3 times a day versus the inventory. So I think it's a two-part equation here. One, as this company is suggesting, is that retail outlets have been using their price strategy from something in the 70s, and things are different now, obviously. But the other thing is also educating the consumer. We've been nurtured to think, you look at that magic date and, oh my, if you go a couple of hours before or after it, you're going to get sick. And that's just not the case. By and large, you can eat right up to the expiry date, and in many cases there is a buffer of a couple of days. So I think that's what they're trying to do overall, but I think it's a wonderful initiative. They said through their pilot project already, again based on stores of some of the major retailers in Europe, they have reduced food waste by almost 40%, and on average increased profit margins by at least 1%, in some cases as much as 6%. So I think this is fantastic because many consumers will take advantage. If they can see something that's being reduced 20, 40, 50%, whatever it is, they get a product that they're going to eat anyway that night or the next day. It doesn't end up in the garbage, and they don't have to deal with it at the store. So I really think it's a win-win on so many levels.
Oh, absolutely. And as you said, profit goes up because even if it's a steep discount, if they leave it there much longer, nobody's going to buy it and it will be zero.
Right.
And I think if people buy it because they know that, it's getting close to that date or time, they're more likely to actually use it right then because it's top of mind. I was just thinking, I need a system like this for my fridge. Because, you put things in the back and you look, you're like, oh, it
Yes.
expired and I forgot I had it, or you're looking
Yes.
for it, you can't find it until you pull something else out. And you're like, that's why the fridge doesn't smell so good. So I can really
You're
see
right.
how at both ends it saves, right?
This is something that you could easily push globally. I'm excited to see if it's embraced in North America, specifically Canada. I look back into, and I won't say the name of the major retailer, but they started doing naturally imperfect perishables. Because again, we always look for the shiny apple, the non-bruised or slightly misshapen, fruit or vegetable. And the reality is, in fact, some would argue that they're even healthier, the ones that, are misaligned because maybe they didn't get treated with pesticide and that sort of thing. But it is now being offered to consumers, by and large, almost 30% reduction in cost. If you're willing to accept it, the naturally imperfect produce, you can have it cheaper and everybody wins because not only do consumers save, but also means that local farmers can sell stuff that normally they wouldn't be able to sell, right?
Absolutely. So honest answer here. Getting close to that best before date discount,
Yeah.
are you going to take advantage of it?
Without
Yeah.
question. I got to be honest, when we go grocery shopping, I will quite regularly look, they have them at the end of the shelves. They have a couple of, like bananas and stuff because we make smoothies. And if we're going to, 9 times out of 10, we just freeze the bruised banana. We take off the skin, shove it in a bag, and we put them in smoothies. So it depends. But yes, I think I would. Absolutely. And I think if it goes forward, where I actually see a variety of items in my store and I see, okay, this is now 40% saving. If we're going to cook up that chicken breast tonight, I'm okay with that because I'm sure there's going to be safety protocols. They're not going to be offering something that is already showing, some mold or something. So absolutely, without question, I look forward. If I can save $1, sign me up.
I like it. I would be limited. I'm
Okay.
very bruised fruit, that kind of thing. I just can't. And I'm a little paranoid of those dates, even though intellectually I know it's fine. Psychologically, I get all kind of, does this taste funny? Is this different? But if it were there and it's something I'm looking for, I know I'm going to use it. Yeah, certain things for sure.
Well, I think it'll be a learning curve, right? I think because we have been so used to that way, I think eventually it'll start to become the norm. At least I hope it will. And then, because you're not alone, I'm sure many people go, oh, hold on. I see that brown spot on that. I'm not going near it. I think there will be a learning curve for that, but I look forward to following up on that story as well. Let's wrap things up, though, on our last story and head to the U.S. Southwest, where they are getting tough on turf. I think this is a great idea.
They want to target grass, not the kind you smoke, the actual
Right.
lawn grass in Nevada.
Yeah.
So there's a new law banning non-functional grass or lawns. So Nevada, we all think Las Vegas. So when this goes into effect, it'll outlaw about 1/3 of all the turf you'd see in Vegas. I mean, we all know about the drought that's affecting, the Western
Yes.
U.S., Southern Western U.S. As we don't really need more proof, but the governor of Nevada said, just take a look. If you're flying into Vegas, often you can see Lake Mead, which is their reservoir, and you can see the bathtub rings, he calls them, going down, down, down as water levels go down. So he's saying, that justifies a measure like this. Okay, so this ban, non-functional grass. What is non-functional grass? Basically, it's the ornamental, the decorative kind. Grass you don't really use per se, like at the entrance to a big housing development or around a condo, park areas at an office.
Boulevards,
The
that sort of
median,
thing.
the space between the sidewalk and the road. What it does not include homes, individual houses, you can still have a lawn, golf courses, which are a pretty big user of water, and parks where people actually use a picnic or play or that kind of thing. Also, it's not going into effect, it basically till 2026, 2027, they're
Right.
going to start enforcing it. So I don't know. To me, that's an awful lot of time just to, for individual businesses to get rid of some turf. I don't think it's that big of a job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got some good factoids. You tell me what you think. I think it could go further. Okay. But basically, they're saying in Vegas, okay, it means replacing about 16 square kilometers of grass in the Metro Vegas area. That's 6 miles for those of you who aren't metric. Saving an estimated 10% of their Colorado River water supply. Another way they put it is 41 liters per person per day, and that's a population of just over
Wow.
2 million. That makes it sound good, but I don't know. What about lawns? Why not individual houses?
Maybe it will be ramped up. Maybe they're just sort of throwing it out there. I know that the officials there, city officials have for some years offered an incentive program.
Yeah.
I think it was $3 per square foot if you wanted to do it. And some homeowners have taken advantage of that. The reality is, it's a very dry place in the first place, and the grass that they have is not like grass that people will be used to, say, in Ontario. I think the grass will be a little different where you are on the West Coast. So it's not like a soft, comfortable grass, yet it is grass. Do you need it in a park? Well, if you have a family and kids, yeah, I would argue that. I think my big concern are really the golf courses, and I know it brings money, and I should give them credit that the industry is fully aware of it. One 18-hole course in Nevada requires about 2,500 gallons in one watering application. Whether they do that every day or every other day, I don't know. So that is a lot of water. And you mentioned Lake Mead. Yes, that is their primary reservoir that sits behind the Hoover Dam. And, the drought is going on for 2 decades, and it has dropped by 140 feet. I mention that because I think that is going to play into the picture here, Christina. You said 2026. You're right. That does seem, 5 years away is a long time, but I think the situation is getting dire. So maybe this is sort of the inaugural sort of rollout. Guys, we're putting this on the radar, but within 2 years, maybe they say enough is enough. It's no longer about, can we have some lawn? It's, do you want lawn or do you want to drink and bathe? It's becoming that dire when you consider that the climate crisis now, we're seeing the record heat. You look at Death Valley, hottest temperature ever. That is going to be a problem. Do you think that the golf industry can adapt enough that they should be able to have golf courses in that state? I don't know. To me, it seems something you really need to reassess.
Well, some do recycle their water. Some have really good green
Yeah.
programs in place. I'm sure not all. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a direction they can go because, when you balance things out, it's also a very healthy part of people's lifestyle. It gets them out, family
Yeah.
time, friend time, social, active, all that kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? But again, for perspective, 7 states basically share allotments, and they have a certain amount each can take from the Colorado River. Recently,
Right.
just south of Phoenix in Arizona, some farmers in one area have actually had to stop irrigating their crops. So I think if you're going to stop something, if you do have to emergency stop something, it should be the golf courses
That's
before
right.
the farmers' crops. But that is, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also, I feel like it's going to become, how things become socially acceptable or socially not acceptable, like, carrying a
Right.
plastic water bottle around. Now people kind of look at it negatively. I wonder if they're kind of building toward a time when in these areas people will start to frown upon neighbors with a lawn, that kind of a thing.
Nevada is the driest state in the U.S. It's a serious concern on so many levels. So I applaud them that they're actually putting this initiative forward, but I do wonder if they're going to have to fast track it in.
That's exactly what I was saying. And the drought-proof gardens are, some of them are quite nice. There are a lot of flowering bushes and cacti. You can still make it visually interesting and sort of green
Sure.
without the lawn. And I think it's also part of a very, I was going to say American, but North American thing. Everyone's attached. My yard, my lawn. It's part of that whole picture of what people
Your
think
homestead.
of. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is great, Christina. We want to thank you for your time and look forward to our next episode.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you then.
And we want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's show, please help us grow by liking and subscribing to the channel. You can also leave your comments. We look forward to answering those. And until then, we wish you a wonderful day. Stay safe. And we look forward to having your company again here on the Blue Files, the extended edition.